Hey, there we are. Good morning, Indiana. Welcome to Who's Left This Week, the Sunday morning news and politics show for the Hoosier State without all the bad faith BS, both sidesism, and MAGA gaslighting. My name is Scott Aaron Rogers. I am recording from Bloomington. And I've got a fantastic panel here with me today. We'll bring them in here shortly. Our one big thing this week is next Saturday's No Kings protests. We're going to talk about this week's upcoming protests. We're going to review the original No Kings 1 in June, and we're going to talk about the effectiveness of peaceful protest relative to maybe more disruptive protest and things like economic disruption. So that's going to be in the last third of the show. Real quick, before we get into all this, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping and invite you all to like and subscribe. Do be sure to subscribe to Project Next on YouTube. If that's where you're watching us today, go ahead and like and share the video, and go ahead and hit that bell icon so you get notifications whenever we drop new content. Follow Project Next on social media at Project Next Movement on most of the platforms. It's Project Next Media on TikTok and Project Next 25 if for some reason you are still on Twitter. Do not go there, please. As for me, you can find old Scott here at whosleft.us on most of the social media platforms, and my website is also whosleft.us, conveniently enough. All right, enough of the shameless self-promotion. Let us welcome in our panel this week. We've got a Oops All Indivisible panel to talk about the No Kings protest next week. So first, let me welcome in returning friend of the pod, Karen Bird from Indivisible of Central Indiana. Welcome.
Hello, Scott. Good to see you again. I know I was here before the last one, too. So,
Karen, your name says Bird, but your headphones say cat.
They do?
Well,
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
Cat ears.
Okay. Thank you. I was very confused for a second. I was like, did this headphones have a name? You can see it in there? Okay. Yes, I am.
I love them. They're amazing.
They have little light up ears. I bought them on Amazon. Surprisingly, they still work years later. So, good stuff. Happy to be here.
All right. Excellent. Well, welcome. Good to see you. And we've got a newcomer. Welcome to the show from Indivisible of Greater Lafayette, Lisa Dullum. Welcome, Lisa.
Hello. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you. Good to meet you. Welcome. I look forward to hearing what you got to say.
Sounds good.
And also from Indivisible, this time in Wabash Valley, that's the Terre Haute region, for those of you who don't know, there's Karina Moffett. Karina, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Good to meet you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for all the organizing work you're doing in your community. We appreciate it deeply. And, oh, what's this? Good God, that's the Recovered Republicans music. Brianna Newhart, crashing the party here today.
Hi,
welcome.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Always good to have you. Don't get to see you enough. Love what you're doing. Hey, by the way, before I know I apologized for the shameless self-promotion, but I'm going to slide one more in here because I am going to be on with Brianna on her live stream on Thursday night this week. Yes?
Yes,
And
I'm so
that
excited.
is going to be a good time. I'm looking forward to that.
I am super excited. And I will say, if you hear something screaming, it's my Frenchie. I'm going to try to keep him quiet, but he's a little yelly today.
Listen, in this world, aren't we all? I think we all have sufficient cause to be a little yelly. So let's go ahead and jump in this week. And I want to start right here in Indiana with some quick headlines. Let's take a trip around the corn. So we're going to start up in my hometown of Michigan City, where Mayor Angie Nelson Deutsch told the city council on Tuesday that a September 23rd outage that impacted the city's telephone and computer networks was, in fact, an attempted ransomware attack. The mayor said no ransom was paid, and she's confident the breach will be fixed internally. An active law enforcement investigation is still ongoing. Staying in Michigan City, the state Executed death row inmate Roy Lee Ward, convicted for the 2001 rape and murder of a 15-year-old Spencer County girl. This happened Friday morning early at the Indiana State Prison up there. This execution follows years of appeals and scrutiny over the state's procurement process for lethal injection drugs and marks the third execution since the state resumed the death penalty in 2024 after a nearly 15-year pause. I should note that no journalists were allowed in the room. That is concerning. Also, in the quick headlines this week, the state Supreme Court dismissed the latest Todd Rokita complaint. If you recall, in June 2022, during a Fox News appearance, the Attorney General disparaged and threatened Indianapolis OBGYN Dr. Caitlin Bernard, the absolute hero who provided an abortion to a 10-year-old Ohio rape victim. Rokita, in a 2023 sworn affidavit, settled the resulting disciplinary investigation by admitting to violating two professional conduct rules in exchange for a public reprimand. However, the extreme Christian nationalist AG almost immediately recanted in a public press release, resulting in yet another investigation over professional misconduct. This Thursday's order from the Supreme Court dismissed that case after Rokita and the Disciplinary Commission agreed that the Attorney General really meant it when he accepted responsibility the first time. Finally, in quick headlines here this week, Bombardier announced during a Wednesday announcement at the Fort Wayne International Airport, surrounded by VPs and elected officials, including Mayor Sharon Tucker and Governor Mike Braun, that the Canadian business jet manufacturer plans to open a new aircraft service center in northeast Indiana. The 64,000 plus square foot facility will be able to hold up to 6 aircraft and offer services including routine and emergency maintenance, modifications, and avionics installation. It is expected to create about 100 high-skill, good-paying jobs. So before we jump into our top stories for the week, I will ask if any of that jumps out to you, Karen.
I can't say I'm surprised to hear what you just said about AG Rokita. Seems like a very misconduct investigation kind of person. And that there's I wish I could say that it was surprising that he, had agreed to this kind of public reprimand and then immediately went back on it, forcing another investigation. It just seems like there's endless investigations. And, I don't know a lot about the process of reprimanding and sort of punishing and kind of bringing accountability to an attorney general. But I do wish that there was one that was made clear kind of to the public so we knew what we needed to do. Because a lot of times when people of this stature get into some kind of trouble, it kind of seems like there's some kind of trial or some kind of professional investigation. And then maybe there's a resolution, but it's very vague. And I think it leaves the public and definitely me with the sense that nothing really happened as a result of these investigations. So I think it can kind of cause people to lose faith in these kind of professional reprimands or even legal real investigations into public officials when it seems like even when something happens, nothing happens. So do you know what this will mean for him? Do these public reprimands or censures, are they going to have any effect on him? Is there any way to actually kind of prevent his misconduct or his bad behavior, I guess is a good way of putting it.
I think this is just part of the package you get with Rokita. I want to say the state has already spent something somewhere in the neighborhood of $500,000 on legal fees defending this kind of tomfoolery.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and jump into our top stories this week. And so Monday, we got the least surprising announcement ever when Bobai, the son and grandson of U.S. senators, filed to run for Indiana Secretary of State, continuing the family political legacy. Now, born in Indiana when his father Evan Bai was governor, Bo mostly grew up in the D.C. area during his old man's time in Congress and attended Harvard for both his undergraduate and law degrees. Incumbent Secretary of State Diego Morales and other Republicans capitalized on this, questioning whether the 29-year-old is a real Hoosier. I should note that criticism from some content creators on the left also made the same point. I am some creators. So served in the Marine Corps as an infantry captain and most recently clerked for U.S. 7th Circuit Court of Appeals Judge David Hamilton down here in Bloomington. In an all-out media blitz that began with an exclusive interview with Indianapolis Star opinion editor James Briggs, Bai criticized Morales for his frequent international travel, wasteful spending in office, and hiring family members for state jobs, while evading questions about his orientation within the Democratic Party, positioning himself as above partisan politics, and touting his ability to work with Republicans. So, question for the panel. Lisa, 29 years old. Is Bo Bai ready for this race?
Not much about Bo Bai, but I do know that Diego Morales and the Indiana legislature has made it harder for people in Indiana to vote. In my district, where I happen to be the county council person for West Lafayette. Purdue students can no longer use their student ID to vote. So it's really making it difficult for out-of-state students who live here for 4 years while they go to school and are eligible to vote, to actually vote. So I want to find someone who's going to be championing voting and making it easier to vote in the state. And if Bo Bai wants to do that, I don't care if he's 29 years old or 25 years old, or 80 years old, as long as he can get that done and do something about what's going on right now in the state.
So, Karina,
Yeah.
does the Bai name matter in 2025?
I think it probably does to some people. I personally think it shouldn't, as much as it does to some people. But that's my personal opinion. I think political dynasties do not serve us well. That it ends up generally biting us in the behind, much like aristocracies and things like that also bite us in the behind. But I haven't seen much of his platform. I don't really know what he's going for, so I don't know much about him yet. I would have to look a little bit more into that to see whether or not he would be good to hopefully rebuild a new Republican Party, because I do believe that when all of this is over and we rebuild a healthy democracy, we are going to have two healthy parties in order to have that. And we do not have a healthy Republican Party right now. So we are going to have some young people to rebuild that healthy Republican Party.
Interesting. So you did you did sort of hint at the next question I was going to ask, talking about political dynasties and such. Brianna, our theme today is the No Kings rally. Doesn't No Kings imply no princes as well?
I think it does. I think that your comment just about, the political dynasties have not served us well. I think that's what I see as well. Is Bo Bai going to understand the everyday struggles of Hoosiers who are working the typical 9 to 5? I don't know. It seems like he's lived a very privileged life, and looking at his website, it's a solid website. It's about looking into having checks and balances. I haven't really seen a lot of voter access information, wanting to improve voter access, like Blythe Potter has been talking about. And I think that it goes to show that maybe he's not as in tune with what the everyday Hoosier is looking for. And I think that's why we don't need these political dynasties, and we don't want kings, and we don't want princes.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Brianna. So let's move on and talk about what else is going on this week. So, as the Indiana Democratic Party over the last 20 years has not offered up a whole lot in terms of resistance, the Indiana Republican Party has been offering up a whole lot of corruption. So last week, as you recall, FTI Consulting, this firm hired by the state, released this 127-page forensic review of the secretive public-private Indiana Economic Development Corporation, as well as associated entities like the nonprofit IEDF Foundation, investment firm Elevate Ventures, academic intermediary Applied Research Institute, and the controversial Boone County Leap District. Now, overall, this audit found a lack of internal controls, inadequate management, and the presence of conflicts that, quote, raise concerns about the potential for favoritism and misuse of public funds, end quote. You don't say. So, findings include millions of dollars of taxpayer-funded entertainment and travel costs, widespread conflicts of interest, and rampant self-dealing. But this week we get still more details. Another example of such self-detailing was detailed this week in the Indianapolis Star, who reported that an Indianapolis development company with close ties to former Indiana Secretary of Commerce Brad Chambers received more than $77 million through no-bid IEDC contracts for his work developing the Leap District. The audit revealed that Pure Development was one of the top recipients of IEDC funds between 2022 and 2024, a time period that significantly overlaps with most of Chambers' tenure as Indiana's top economic development official. Meanwhile, Chambers' firm Buckingham Companies has been building a mixed-use redevelopment project with Pure Development in Carmel, also announced in 2022, also using taxpayer money. More than $18 million in taxpayer-funded management fees have flowed directly to Pure since 2022 for its management of the Leap District, a project championed by Chambers during his run for governor last year. These no-bid contracts have raised questions for some about the potential for a conflict of interest given Pure's relationship with Chambers. Chambers served as Secretary of Commerce from mid-2021 to mid-2023 under former Governor Eric Holcomb's tenure. During those years, Pure received nearly $19 million from the IEDC. So first of all, Karen, ironically named company there, Pure Development, eh?
Yeah, definitely. And this is one of those things where the kind of the rules of the funds distribution or the access to these funds are very kind of vaguely written, maybe, or there isn't a lot of enforcement of the rules if they're clearly written. And with these kinds of organizations, with these kinds of setups where, you know, money's being given to private entities for development, the rules have to explicitly exist to prevent mismanagement, to prevent profiteering. It's not enough to simply have neutral rules or guidelines. They need to be like binding. There needs to be an enforcement action kind of already in the setup of the deal. Because otherwise it's basically inevitable that you get stuff like this, right? If there's room to take advantage where funds are concerned, people are going to do it. So, you know, obviously it's not great that this happened, but I think the first issue is going to be with when this plan was developed, it wasn't considered how this could be taken advantage of, or, you know, more cynically, it was written explicitly so that it could be taken advantage of. And both of those are issues of kind of first principles of the development plan. So I think that that's the kind of area of intervention when these development plans are created. If any public input, is there a way for other interested parties to meaningfully impact how the deal goes forward? And that's the place where whoever is able to do that needs to, hey, we need to make it explicitly so that it prevents, as well as possible, any kind of corruption. It needs to be anti-corruption, not merely neutral in its wording or its design. So, yeah,
100%. So, listen, Lisa, this accounting of corruption during the Holcomb Chambers sort of era, and really, if you want to go back and look at the Daniels and Pence eras, you could too. But this accounting of corruption of like the business wing of the party under like MAGA Mike Braun's watch, does this signal some sort of larger rift among Indiana Republicans?
No, that is a good question. I don't know that I have the answer to that, but the corruption that you see is the corruption that we're also seeing at the national level. So I just see the party corrupt up and down the. Maybe there's some rift between the Republicans. I don't know. It seems like corruption is what they do.
They're quite good at it. I mean, it's evil, and it hurts Hoosiers, but you got to respect the game, huh?
I don't know about that. People, it's money we could be using for schools and parks and making lives better. So we can joke about it, but at the end of the day, it hurts. It hurts Hoosiers. It hurts Americans. It hurts people.
100%. So, well, I mean, let me ask you, Karina. And I think Lisa got at something there. I don't trust the Braun administration to be operating in good faith. I don't trust them to be good stewards of our taxpayer dollars. Like, given their record, like what is the motivation here for the MAGA wing of the party to highlight this corruption within
you
the
mean
party,
pointing out the corruption in someone else? I think that's right, exactly. I think that is standard. I mean, you're seeing it at the federal level all the time, right? And I think the phrase is every accusation is a confession. And you hear that a lot too, is the cheaters always assume that everyone else is cheating.
Yeah.
So if you're involved in that corruption, then you just assume that everyone else is trying to cheat the system as well. And so you're looking for that. You just automatically look for that. Whereas if you tend to be on the up and up, you don't just assume that everyone else is going for that. And that's why you end up with those sort of neutrally worded laws that don't go for the loopholes, that don't think about explicitly stating you cannot do it like this. So that you can avoid having those loopholes for corruption. But you're right. You're absolutely right. If they're not specifically stated, you have to do it this specific way to keep from allowing corruption, then yeah, they're gonna find a way around. And that's what we had. That's why we have so much trouble with our tax code, because there's just way too many loopholes.
Right, and then the only people that know how to exploit those loopholes are the people who are already privileged and well positioned and have the funds to do so. Brianna,
exactly.
The IEDC and its corruption seems to come up every week here on the show, and every week I ask when I get to this point, is this thing even salvageable? Like, is the IDC and all of the various entities that are attached to it worth keeping around? Or are they reformable, or do we need to tear it all down and build something new in its place?
Well, I think, when you look at it and who's been in control for the last almost 25 years solely in Indiana, and knowing that Republicans, that party is known for corruption, I don't think that it's salvageable. I think it needs to be totally rethought. And like Karina was saying, there needs to be laws put in place that are anti-corruption, not just neutral, before it can actually operate the way it should be operating. So I think in order to get to that place, we need to tear it down and basically start from the ground up. But I don't trust the Braun administration to do that. I think we would need to either wait and hope that we get some different people in power this next election, or maybe an independent, nonpartisan company could help with that as well. But I don't think that the Braun administration is the administration to weed out corruption.
Yeah.
Certainly
I
not.
like the idea of a third party. Yeah.
Yes,
Not
at
third
least
party,
three.
but a third party.
Independent
Yeah,
contractor.
an independent entity.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
very, very good. So here's a big thing this week. So according to the Financial Times, Global Infrastructure Partners, this is a subsidiary of BlackRock, the world's largest private equity firm, is in advanced talks to acquire AES Corporation for around $38 billion in what would be one of the largest infrastructure takeovers of all time. So AES is one of the largest publicly traded utilities in the U.S., owns and operates power plants across the country and in 13 other nations. It has invested heavily in recent years in renewable energy grids, which play a crucial role in supplying power to data centers owned by technology giants such as Microsoft, Meta, and Google. Now, one of the places where AES operates is in Indiana. And some folks are arguing that instead of letting this happen and a private equity firm come in and take over AES, that the city of Indianapolis should at least consider buying the Indiana subsidiary of this company. So in purchasing a public utility, private equity firms like BlackRock could pass on debt to consumers and lower the service quality to extract profit with no consequences because they're a monopoly. The consumers have no alternatives. Firms like this likely see a route to quick profits, selling electricity to data centers, like we talked about, fueled by an economy high on artificial intelligence and subsidized by massive state tax breaks. Blackstone, another private equity firm, bought almost 20% of NIPSCO, that's the public utility up in northern Indiana last year. NIPSCO then planned several solar farms and other infrastructure investments and passed costs on to consumers. It is also planning additional natural gas plants to power data centers. The result of that purchase was the highest jump in electricity prices of any utility in Indiana over the last year. 26%. For some customers, that means an increase of $50 a month. So, in the Indy Star this week, columnist Jacob Stewart argued that the city has the authority to purchase the utility. Almost 50 years ago, the city was granted the authority to buy public utilities using revenue bonds, a tool frequently used to fund multi-million-dollar school improvements. The city last exercised this right in 2002 with the purchase of the Indianapolis Water Company for $515 million. The city contracted with another company to manage the utility until selling it to Citizens Energy, a nonprofit public charitable trust, in 2011. So the city county council could theoretically grant Mayor Joe Hogsett the authority to strike a deal to purchase AES Indiana, and this would be an excellent way, according to the author, for the mayor to begin to fix his public image during a scandal-filled third term. Jesse Brown, an East Side City County Council Democrat and friend of the pod, came out in support of this idea. And interestingly, a couple of council Republicans also seem to think this might be a good idea. Karen, Jesse Brown said, quote, "If we can use revenue bonds to finance a hotel, why not use those bonds to finance an electric utility? Guaranteed return on equity is obviously attractive to shareholders," end quote. He references a development in Indianapolis where the city literally took out a bond to finance a hotel. But is he right? Is this a good thing? Is this something is this something the city should consider?
I definitely
Sorry,
think
Indianapolis, we love you.
I definitely think so. I'm generally of the opinion that electricity, gas, food, these main like big utilities, there should be a public option. And especially with critical stuff like electricity, it should be publicly owned if at all possible, in my opinion. Like you said, BlackRock, these investment firms, just like they did when they bought up a bunch of housing and apartments and just living places, basically extracted a bunch of wealth from the public without giving anything back and just kind of passing it on further to the people who are already the wealthiest in the country, many of whom don't even live in Indiana, obviously. And then it's also, like you said, with the data centers, like a lot of people have a lot of different opinions of AI. I'm of the opinion that it's mostly worthless as it stands right now. Like it kind of solves no problems. Now, that's not to say that theoretically an artificial intelligence that could be developed differently might have like a human mind and do all this sci-fi stuff. Look, I don't know anything about that. I'm not a physicist. I'm not like an engineer. I don't know. But the stuff that they have now, basically these data centers are going to provide electricity for large language models and like character AI and stuff like that, which really is just worthless. It's a text predictor that allows people to generate a bunch of text that nobody wants to read. I mean, this is overwhelmingly what it's being used for. And it's just a complete waste of resources. Like previously, in previous generations, you know, at least the car factory was producing cars that people would use. People wanted the thing that was being made. It was useful. It was changing the world. Same with smartphone factories or whatever else, you know, whatever environmental devastation they may have caused, it was for a purpose that people wanted to some degree. This is something that nobody wants except for people who need to inflate their stock price on Wall Street. There is literally no real use or benefit to the product being produced. Nobody likes it except the people who are making money off it. Everybody's speaking positively and overwhelmingly wonderfully about AI is somebody who's selling an AI product or stands to benefit from selling shares in an AI company or something like that. There's nobody outside of the ecosystem of profitability that is extolling the benefits of this thing like there would be for another product that was being made that was causing issues. So this whole thing is just a house of cards. Like, it's not sustainable. So, you know, selling the power that's providing electricity to the population to an entity whose main interest is propping up a product that is going to collapse inevitably at some point. It's just complete nonsense. I think it's a non-starter thinking wise. Like it makes total sense to buy the utility for the city. Like it's all benefit and very little risk. Like I don't know why there's a debate about it. I don't understand the benefits of doing anything else unless you stood to profit from it somehow, profit from the sale. Like there's just no other reason to allow it. So I'm fully on the side of absolutely, yes, the city, the public should own the electricity that allows them to live in the area. So yes, they should do it.
Yeah. Lisa, didn't it used to be that way? I mean, like, I thought back in the day before the era of Reagan and neoliberalism and private everything, weren't most utilities publicly owned and managed for the benefit of the community? I mean, maybe not terribly well, but I mean, isn't that the way things used to work?
Don't know the history of public utilities. I'm probably the wrong panelist to ask this question to.
Well, let me ask, isn't that the way they should work?
Well, sir, if you think about our roads are publicly owned, and we don't have a private company owning our roads, although I guess Governor Daniels did do that with a couple of our roads, but in general, our roads are publicly owned, and that seems to work pretty well. They're monopoly power, so we don't want, 4 or 5. We don't want competition because that would mean a lot of infrastructure that is not necessary. So yeah, I would think that you would want it to be publicly owned.
I would think so.
It provides
too,
a good to the public, and and it's a monopoly. So.
Well, I mean, Karina, we're kind of describing socialism. Hey, I mean, listen, sign me up, but what do you listen? There were a couple of Republican city councilors that thought, "Hey, maybe this is a good idea." What's going on there?
I hate that there has been such a deliberate push to make certain words I'm going to choose my words carefully here. Dangerous and scary, like socialism. When pollsters and interviewers of any kind go out and talk to the general public, and they talk about progressive policies of just about any type. They just talk about the policy. They don't call them Republican or Democrat. They don't call them progressive. They don't call them socialist. They don't call them anything. They don't put a label on them. They just talk about them. When they talk about progressive policies, almost everyone in the United States is behind progressive policies. And most of those policies would be considered a type of socialism, right? And that includes things like healthcare and utilities and food and the minimum wage and, all of the housing, all of those things that, people should have a basic minimum standard of life, okay? The things that we think of as the American dream, the things that we think of as this is our bare minimum for survival and, I don't want to say success, but doing decently, right? Not necessarily really well, but doing decently, right? And most people have in their mind, if I apply myself, if I work hard, I should be able to attain those things. And that has been part of the problem is they work and they work and they work. And sometimes they get a second job and they work and they work and they work. And they can't do those things. They find themselves still at or under the poverty level, even with a second job, and they can't get food and housing and health care because of all of these things holding them back, right? And so why wouldn't you want those things, those progressive policies to help you get over that line, to help you be able to achieve the American dream, that thing that we all aspire to, that imaginary idea of what we think success is, right? We have this shared myth of what the American dream is, and that we should all be able to attain it. And we simply can't right now. Most of us are unable to get to the American dream. And so most people are behind those policies that can help people get there. So as long as we don't put those scary labels on them, they're behind it. But you put that S word in front of it, and ooh, that's too scary. I don't want that. So that's why I don't like putting the scary socialism label on there.
What do you think, Brandon? Seize the means of electrical production?
I mean, I am all for publicly owned electric utilities. I don't understand why it's privatized ever. It's just my opinion that privatization of anything that is like a public good that we need to survive is just not a good idea, because businesses will always choose profits over people, and that's not okay. So,
like
100. All right, one more thing here in Indiana this week. So old Vice President J.D. Vance was back in town in Indianapolis for the second time in just 2 months, attempting to persuade Hoosier Republicans to call a special session for the purpose of redrawing the state's congressional maps. Senate Majority Leader Rod Bray was evasive, only saying that the supermajority would reach a decision soon. Some MAGA members stood 10 toes down, willing to do whatever Daddy Trump demands, but Minority Leader Shelley Yoder said her colleagues from across the aisle just don't have the votes. Governor Mike Braun has since repeatedly floated the idea of a November special session for early redistricting. The next regularly scheduled legislative session will kick off in January, around the same time that Indiana's window to file congressional bids opens. multiple polls, including one released in August and one this week, have found that the majority of Hoosiers oppose early redistricting. Brianna, are they going to go through with this thing?
You know, I thought they were initially because Mike Braun just seems like he just really wants to please his daddy Trump. But they've held out, and I was at the protest at the State House and got to hear Shelley Yoder speak. And according to, you know, the Chronicle and the Indy Star, there's a lot of and Shelley Yoder, there are several Republicans who don't want it, and they don't seem to have the votes at this time. I think that the price tag of $30K a day extra that is not budgeted for is a large pill to swallow, on top of the fact that Indiana's constitution says that we only redistrict, and when we have to redistrict, at the end of the decade when the federal census has been completed. So it would be going against the Indiana Constitution. So I think that luckily it seems that the Republican legislators this time are seriously considering this, because they would have to be going against Indiana's Constitution willingly and knowingly to redistrict right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Karen, they always, not just here in Indiana, but if you look at like Mike Johnson and congressional Republicans too, they like to play this game where they act like they have some scruples before eventually caving. Is that what's going on here?
I don't know. So at the national level, I think that there was a lot more direct interaction with Trump. There's a lot more direct control that he has over them. He can go over there and talk to them. He paid for a lot of their campaigns. He can damage their ability to fundraise. He can do a lot of things to influence them more so than local politicians. So the ones who have to approve redistricting are Indiana State, the legislature. And I think that they're less sensitive, most of them, to what Trump wants. Not that they don't know, but like I think that they are less pressured into doing what he says, if only because I think that there's less risk to them than there is to congressional Republicans, because Donald Trump is not going to come and like invade Indiana and interact probably with their local races because of this. I think that this is something that he's hoping that somebody else can go do for him so that he can get the votes he needs on the Hill. I don't know if he is individually as invested in punishing enemies at like a state and local level. So I think that they feel less pressure in that way. And I think that the state level people are less in the DC kind of bubble. And they, I think, can see a future past Trump in a way that some of the Hill people don't or haven't been doing until recently. So they know that, you know, their position here, they're going to be here after Trump's dead. They're going to have to run again. They're going to have to defend their choices directly without, you know, the support of the National Party or of this Trump machine. And I think that that gives them some pause because he's not going to be around to save them forever, is kind of on a downswing in popularity now. And so I think that they're less intimidated. It's harder to intimidate them into doing it, I think, than it is the Republicans on the Hill. There's also the issue of, even though a lot of them are Trump supporters, there's being a Trump supporter, and then there's undermining the Constitution of Indiana in such a flagrant and direct way that I think is kind of frightening to them. Like, they're not sure that they want to go fully in that way, that we're going to just ignore the Constitution and we're going to do whatever we want. Because not only is it kind of go against tradition a lot in the US, like it's a very big step to do that, but it also opens the door for the other party to do the same thing. And right now they have a supermajority. Is that going to be the case absolutely forever? No. There's a chance to break the supermajority in 2026, not to gain a majority, but to break the supermajority the Republicans have. And in that way, it's possible to then make changes or stop them from enacting some local policy that the National Party doesn't care about in the coming years, where there's still going to be representatives here. So I think at the state level especially, this isn't guaranteed to happen. That's not to say it won't, but it's not the foregone conclusion that I think that they wanted us to think it is. I think Vance's repeated visits are evidence of this. I think if they, wanted to just signal it and they go through with it, they could just do that once. But he's been here once. He was hiding, not really interacting with the public. He didn't really talk to that many of the.
Never mind the man behind the curtain. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was caught doing this. There was a lot of resistance, and now he's back again, which implies to me that he was unsuccessful the first time when he tried to convince the legislature to do it. Like maybe Braun's all on board, maybe not. There's so much dishonesty that it's hard to tell when Braun is like, oh yes, I'm fully on board with this because of Daddy Trump, and when he's just saying he is because he doesn't want to be on the outs with the administration. Like it's very unclear when there's this much corruption and dishonesty, when people are lying and when people are telling the truth who are in those positions. But I think it's not at all a foregone conclusion. I don't think we should assume, oh well, there's no point in saying anything about it. They're just going to go through with it. It's not that situation. I think now they might still end up doing it. I don't know, but they're doing this. Oh, let's float the idea. Oh, we're considering having a session, maybe. Oh, he's just going to come back to talk to us about it a couple of times, and that implies to me that they do not have what they need to push it through. Because this is not a situation where if they were going to do it, it benefits them to delay because the 2026 elections are coming. And if they don't do it soon, it just becomes like it becomes less likely the more they delay it. So there's not a benefit to doing that. And I think also, oh, go ahead. Yeah, whoever
I was going to say about that. And Bree sort of hinted at this. Yeah. It's against the Constitution, illegal. First of all, but also, boy, we're awfully late in the process. I mean, Lisa, like there are already candidates in these races who are out campaigning. Mm-hmm. If the districts are going to change in a couple months, they don't even know where they're supposed to campaign at, do they?
Exactly. Yeah, sign January, right? The first week of January is when people start to sign up for the primary, and they have until the first week of February. So that's not that far away anymore.
Yeah, and last question here for you there, Karina. So protesters greeted Vance at the State House on Friday with couches parked on the sidewalk, referencing a parody meme, which implies that Vance likes some cushion for the pushin'. I think people are burned out on the indignation, the pointing out the flagrant cheating. Is mockery the best way to handle these fascists?
I think it is one tool in the toolkit. Absolutely. I think in this particular case, it gets them riled up. It makes them upset. It makes them angry. And they want to be seen as all powerful and be respected. And I am over you and, big and strong and, all of that kind of stuff. And when you mock, you make it absolutely clear that you do not respect them. And in this case, they did not deserve the respect. They did not earn the respect. So, I think bring on the mockery.
Well,
in the vast majority of the time, that is a very, very effective way to weaken the power and weaken the fear that an authoritarian tries to bring to their what they want to be their subjects. That's how they try to rule, is through fear. And so you bring mockery, that dissipates fear faster than anything.
Yeah, 100%. We're gonna see some good examples of this coming up here in the next segment of the show when we talk about how they're dealing with the ICE presence in Portland. And let us go ahead and move on to our national stories. But first, where I profile one Hoosier who's out there being a total badass. And this week we are going to go up to Hammond, where armed agents with the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement were staging an operation early Thursday in the parking lot of the city's police department, which triggered quick backlash from Mayor Tom McDermott Jr. City officials informed the ICE agents they were not authorized to stage operations on city property. According to the mayor, the agents reportedly complied and relocated their operation elsewhere in the city, he said. Let me be clear. Hammond does not have any agreements or partnerships with ICE that authorize them to use our city's facilities or property for their operations, McDermott said in a prepared statement. It is deeply concerning that federal agents would enter and use Hammond's property without permission, especially when the federal courthouse is located just 1 block west of our police headquarters, he said. This isn't the first ICE visit to Hammond. McDermott said earlier this month on his Left of Center podcast that ICE has been spotted in the city in recent weeks taking into custody specific individuals suspected of lacking legal status to remain in the United States. For example, the Democratic mayor said a concerned citizen recently contacted Hammond police after noticing a vehicle with Illinois plates and several people sitting inside that was parked on the street near a home in their neighborhood for more than 2 hours. When police pulled up to the vehicle, McDermott said Hammond officers discovered it was filled with ICE agents waiting to detain someone. You would never guess it's an ICE car. It doesn't look like an ICE car, it's not marked like that, and it's got a bunch of agents in there with their faces covered like the Taliban, McDermott said. If you have to cover your face, you know what you're doing is wrong. Indeed. McDermott said on his podcast he believes the entire federal approach to immigration enforcement under Republican President Donald Trump is akin to something you'd see in China or another authoritarian nation rather than the American way. McDermott specifically cited ICE's efforts to intimidate the population by walking down Chicago's streets armed to the teeth, indifferently pushing down protesters and anyone else who gets in their way, and even using pepper spray on uniformed Chicago police officers. As an aside, who do you cheer for in that one? If you support this, you're a fucking animal. I mean, honestly, you can't support that. If my Hammond cops did that, I'd be run out of office along with the department. There's no way we could operate like this, McDermott said. I am done with ICE. ICE is a freaking paramilitary organization for Donald Trump, okay? They are not cops. Those guys are not police officers. They're like little soldiers for Donald Trump, and they're invading Chicago, and I'll tell you, I am done with them. To that end, McDermott urged his podcast listeners to vote out any elected official who supports what ICE is doing and to hold individual ICE employees responsible for their behavior. I'll tell you what, I'll never hire an ICE agent or a former ICE agent in the city of Hammond, whatever job I'm in. If they have ICE listed on their form, I'm going to find a reason not to hire that person, because I consider them the modern day equivalent of what was going on in Germany leading up to World War II. This is Trump's little secret army, McDermott said, and this is how you talk about the president's little Gestapo, his Einsatzgruppen. And this is, as a Democratic elected official, how you treat them. Whatever power you have, you should be using to throw sand in the gears. So, for this week, Hammond Mayor Tom McDermott, you are who's bad. Let's move on. Talk about our national stories this week. And so I've got a couple headlines before we dig into the meat. So let's talk about our old friend of the pod, Jeffrey Epstein. Not really a friend of the pod. Pictured here with a younger Donald Trump and a young Pam Bondi. On Monday, the U.S. Supreme Court rejected an appeal from Epstein's co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell, leaving her 2021 conviction and the accompanying 20-year prison sentence intact. The following day, Maxwell's old friend, President Trump, signaled a willingness to consider pardoning the sex offender, and on Wednesday, House Judiciary Committee ranking member Jamie Raskin demanded that banks start handing over records. Also this week, a spokesperson for Joe Biden confirmed the 82-year-old former president is undergoing radiation therapy to treat prostate cancer. This follows the May announcement that Biden had been diagnosed with an aggressive form of the disease. Also, this week on Friday, we learned from self-styled Secretary of War Pete Hegseth that the administration intends to build a Qatari Air Force facility at Mountain Home AFB in Idaho. This move sent shockwaves across political circles, given the U.S. almost never permits foreign governments to have military facilities on its territory. Some fear that hosting a foreign military installation could also create intelligence and counterintelligence risks. Gee, you think? As Qatar maintains close ties with countries like Iran and Turkey. By Saturday, Hegseth had to issue a clarification stating that this is not a Qatari-owned base, but a joint project with a long-standing U.S. ally. Also, this week, we learned that Dominion Voting Systems, the election vendor that was falsely accused of rigging the 2020 election, is being sold and rebranded as Liberty Vote, affected immediately. Scott Leindecker, the founder of a Missouri-based election technology company who previously served as the Republican director for the St. Louis City Board of Elections, purchased the company this week for an undisclosed sum. This guy is a huge Trumper. This is potentially very concerning. Finally, this week, we learned last Sunday from the National Football League that Puerto Rican star Bad Bunny will headline February's Super Bowl halftime show, and MAGA is in their feelings about the Spanish language artist taking over their precious cultural institution. Brianna, Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk's organization, is planning some counter programming during the halftime show, putting on their own presentation, their own little concert in response to the Spanish language artist. Who do you think is playing at the Turning Point USA halftime show? I got Jason Aldean and the January 6th choir performing the Horst Wessel song. What do you got?
That is a great question. I mean, the first person popping into my mind is maybe Carrie Underwood. She might be there. I don't know.
Would she?
I don't know. I mean, there's just so many, like, it's got to be somebody country, right? Like, it has to. Or maybe but it is Turning Point, so maybe it's like a Christian band that no one knows.
Incredible.
What's Creed doing these days?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure they're available, so maybe we should suggest that.
Karen, anything else up there in those quick headlines catch your eye this week?
I'm surprised in a good way about the Epstein stuff. I was worried that it would turn into another thing he did that we just forget about, but it really has a lot of staying power. And I guess that gives me a little bit of hope for his actual base, because they seem like they're like, no, we're not letting this one go. We want to know the truth about this. And so I was reading about, cults and how they break apart. And one of them, I read a book, and it was like, to outsiders, the thing that will break the cult apart is something that a lot of other people, it was obvious from the beginning, but for the people in the cult will be like a big surprise breaking, like it'll affect them suddenly. To you, it will look like there was no reason for this to be the thing that broke it apart. Because for me, somebody who was never kind of in that world, it was very obvious that he was involved with this because he said it. But for a lot of parents, it didn't set in for them, even though they heard it. They were just in this kind of cult bubble. But when it starts to break down, that it's very slowly and then all at once. And I feel like we're seeing a little bit of that happening, where all the stuff he's done over the past few years that kind of hasn't penetrated with his hardcore supporters seems to be doing that, based on something that to us seems not innocuous, but like was common knowledge, suddenly is affecting him in a way that it didn't previously affect him. And it seems like he understands that as well. And so I think that this could be a thing that really does kind of pull the wool from people's eyes, even if it seemed impossible. That it does, it happens every time with cults, and it always seems like it's impossible. And so that has been something that I've been happy to see, that they're not dropping it. The media is not dropping it. He's not able to deflect the attention, even with the Charlie Kirk thing, even with the other stuff. I'm going to invade Portland. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. It just isn't. It's not enough to distract from it. It's not. People are actually paying attention to it. They're interested. They're following it. And so I was happy to see that development.
Yeah, and California Congressman Eric Swalwell, I want to say it was maybe Thursday or Friday this week, said it's coming. Like, his colleagues are talking amongst themselves, and he sees Republicans kind of slowly falling away, and that, you know, maybe the dam's going to break on this thing. Lisa, any of those quick headlines catch your eye this week?
Excited about Bad Bunny at the NFL Super Bowl, but there's so much going on. Yeah.
So I take it you will be tuning in for the real Super Bowl halftime show, and
I'm not watching
flipping
Charlie
over to the
Kirk's or Turning Point. No.
That's
so,
it's so
you know,
it's so bad. I don't know why.
I think what's really important there is that, you know, people feel like the NFL is a very, very the Super Bowl is a very, very American. And the fact that Bad Bunny is going to be there, he's there because that is the new generation. Mm-hmm. That is what he's the most popular Latin American star, pop singer in the world. And he is American. And that is the future of America. Yeah. That type of multicultural, you know, open, expressive culture, and that's what they're scared of. That's really what they're scared of.
Yeah, 100%. Karina, any quick thoughts before we dig into the meat of our U.S. and international stories this week?
Well, I was just going to agree. It's looking forward to. They're afraid we're all going to be just a little bit brown. We're all going to be just a little bit. Yeah, I mean, because that's really what it is. It's like, you know, the whole entire United States just having a little bit of this and a little bit of that, the great American melting pot. And, you know, we used to celebrate that. And why are we not celebrating that now? And immigration and all of the different cultures and all of that, and we should be celebrating that. And
yes, we should be, but instead of that, we're doing things like invading large American cities. So we are once again this week on Fascism Watch, and let's look across the border in Chicago, where earlier this week Mayor Brandon Johnson signed the ICE-free zone executive order prohibiting federal immigration agents from using city-owned property for civil immigration enforcement operations. This was a direct response to documented instances of ICE agents using city property, such as parking lots, for staging immigration enforcement operations. To counter this, city departments were instructed to post ICE-free zone signs and use barriers like locked gates to prevent access. This is the kind of stuff we were highlighting when pointing out Mayor McDermott and Hammond. This is Mayor Johnson right across the state line in Chicago, throwing sand in the gears. Now, so Trump has been threatening Chicago with the National Guard. On the 8th, the other day, 500 Guard troops, including 300 from Illinois and 200 from Texas, arrived in the Chicago area despite objections from local officials. These troops were deployed by the Trump administration to protect federal personnel and property. At least that is their given excuse. And this is to protect the ICE agents and facilities from protesters like that priest pictured on the screen getting tear gassed. The National Guard units were stationed at an Army Reserve Center outside Joliet, and as of October 10th, that was Friday, they were reportedly not engaged in operational activities due to a court order. Mayor Brandon Johnson condemned federal immigration enforcement tactics, accusing agents of violating Chicagoans' constitutional rights. He asserted that the federal government was disregarding local authority and criticized the White House for its rhetoric, stating, quote, "ICE lies and people die." For his part, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker joined the city of Chicago in filing a lawsuit to block the guard deployment, calling it unlawful and unconstitutional. He denounced the raids and troop deployment, accusing agents of creating mayhem and acting with impunity. Specifically, he referenced a raid from the prior week where children and elderly individuals were mistreated, zip-tied, their apartments broken into in the middle of the night. Pritzker said, quote, "What kind of a country are we living in?" And I will pose the same question to you, Brianna. What the hell? What are we doing here?
Well, I have no idea. This is not the America that we have all grown up with. I just don't see how this can be looked at other than the president declaring war on one of its own cities, which is treason. I think it's just part of this distraction tactics. I do think this is trying to distract from the Epstein files. I really do. Part of this whole thing is just to try to get people to forget about the Epstein files, which to that I say release the Epstein files. But I also say that I understand that the government's shut down, but with what is happening and kind of sending the National Guard into Portland and Chicago, I just don't know how to view it other than it's treason, and I expect Congress to do their freaking jobs when they come back. Because this is not the American way. This is not how it's supposed to go.
100%. Karen, I gotta ask you, are Johnson and Pritzker handling this the right way?
I think they are, because basically the job of them now, and really all of us, is to highlight the overreaches of the administration and to stand in a stark contrast to that as an alternative to what they're doing. I think highlighting the division right now is going to be the key aspect of that to prevent, any further escalations, while at the same time making the most politically of this. Because here's the thing, Trump is doing what he's seen other authoritarians do, right? So he's seen them send in troops to do things. He's seen them investigate their opponents. But Trump, this administration at large, doesn't seem to understand why those regimes do those things. They seem to think that simply signaling and behaving like they do is the same thing as running an authoritarian regime, and they are not the same thing. It actually works against them to continually send paltry numbers of National Guardsmen into areas with millions of people and have them do nothing. It is a mistake, if you're an authoritarian trying to take over a country, to send in soldiers who don't kill anybody. It's a bad idea because it makes it seem like you don't have control over them or that you can't do what you're threatening to do. It was threatening for him to say that he was going to enact the Insurrection Act. It was threatening for him to say that he was going to suspend birthright citizenship. It was threatening for him to say that he was going to send people to third countries or prisons. But when he actually did those things and then they got reversed, or he tried to do them and was unsuccessful, it actually undermines his authority and makes him less scary to the people that he's trying to frighten. I know that this is visually very threatening, but I don't think that it represents the threat that he wants the image to imply, because he can send the troops. I'm sending in the troops, but the troops don't do anything when they get there. So why do we need to be afraid of you sending in the troops? Now, he doesn't order them to he can't make them do anything. So what's the point? And now ICE is a little bit more threatening because they are actually taking actions. They do interact somewhat with the population. But again, when Putin sends goons to the town, they're going to beat up, they're going to kill some people, they're going to send them away to a foreign gulag, and there's not going to be a lot that people can do in response. But these people are just some guys he found wearing homemade gear and bulletproof vests without the plates in it, and just generally looking very shaggy and pathetic, kind of shooting pepper balls at costume frogs and just kind of pushing people down on the side. It's very pathetic, the image. And it's he wants this to be very scary. I am far less scared now than I was when he was threatening to do it. Does that make sense? Because
I see what you're saying.
And the reality is not what he's saying it is. It's really, I've begun to doubt whether if he said, okay, I'm sending in the guard or the soldiers, I want you to go kill my enemies. I think that they would not do it. And I wasn't sure about that in February, but I'm far more sure now, especially after that weird presentation that he did, bringing all the military leaders into one room that he announced that we can advance, and then doing a weird presentation about how they can't be fat and how he hates gender. Like it's not coming together for me personally as a fascist.
Yeah.
It's trying to they think that doing the marketing campaign of a fascist overthrow is the same as really doing it without understanding the purpose of any of the actions they take. So it's undermining itself even more than we are, I think. So
we talked about the generals and the admirals and their reaction to Hegseth's Nazi pep rally last week.
I don't have control over these people. They do not respect me. They will not follow my orders. Thank you for your attention to this matter, is what that means.
Yes, great. That is our professional military, though. And so let me ask you, Lisa. We were talking about the ICE folks, the ones who are masked, who are maybe fresh off the streets, who aren't our professional, well-trained soldiers. It's those folks I worry about. What about you?
Worry about them because they've been empowered to do violent acts against vulnerable people, but they're also cowards because they're hiding their face and cosplaying violent thugs. And I just don't, I don't know. I don't see that really. And not to take away that they are doing some horrible, violent activities, but do you think a lot of people respect them or want to be them, or they're hiding why are they hiding their faces?
Concept.
They know what they're doing isn't right. Or some of them know.
Yeah.
Well, Karina, let me ask you then. When all is said and done, when we come out on the other side of this thing, and I continue to believe that we will, what is the appropriate punishment for these ICE folks?
Yeah, I think it's going to be difficult, honestly. And that's part of the reason for the masks, right? I mean, they're trying to obscure their identity, so it's going to be hard for us after the fact to go, okay, how do we find some of these people? My concern in the moment right now is not so much every single one of them, because a lot of them are just, high school bullies, right? A lot of them are just that. But we have a pretty good hunch that there are quite a few Jan 6ers in there, right? Those are the people that
How do we know?
probably
How do we know?
actually, right? Those are the people that are probably actually truly dangerous. And I'm sure they're sprinkled in all over the place. We have no idea because they're wearing masks. But I'm sure that we can find the identities of some of them. But certainly there's going to be so much, not just rebuilding, but absolutely there's going to be cleanup work after the fact. But I was, while Karen was talking earlier about them, so much of what you said was just so right on. But I think it's like they want to skip ahead, right?
Yes, that is exactly it.
Like they're in the consolidation phase of their consolidating power.
Or I guess they're
they want to skip ahead to the place where they already have all the power and do all of those things that an authoritarian does when they've already consolidated all their power and behave like an established authoritarian government, and they're so unbelievably incompetent at it that when they do, like you said, they're just throwing a handful of soldiers at it and saying, go be intimidating. And people are like, okay, so you sent how many to Chicago? This is not what? Right? Do you know how many people are in Chicago?
There's no orders either. There's no orders to do anything. This is like the most
Right.
they like just go to Chicago and prevent crime. Like in DC, they were picking up trash. Just trash pickup. And it's not the effect is pathetic.
Yeah.
And an authoritarian can afford to be a lot of things, but pathetic and genuinely mocked and not thought highly of is not one of them. Like he can be scary,
and the same thing.
They can be like reasonable, but they cannot be not taken seriously. And everything
I think
is undermining that's
a good end to talk about another city where our fellow Americans are under invasion by the federal government. And one of my favorite cities in the country, Portland, Oregon, where I've got family. Hello, Portland, if you're watching. So now you talk about the optics of fascism. We sort of talked about this with Vance and his couch outside of the State House in Indiana. So what they've been doing in Portland, and to show these ICE clowns for what they are, to show that Portland isn't the ravaged hellscape that Trump has described it as. We got folks out here having dance parties dressed up as frogs and unicorns and dinosaurs. On Friday, a couple performed a mock wedding with the bride dressed as a unicorn and the groom as Kenny from South Park. These protest participants and media outlets are noting that these tactics serve as a counter narrative to the federal government's depiction of the city as a war zone. One protester told CNN that it makes it much harder to take them seriously when they have to post a video saying Kristi Noem is up on the balcony staring over the Antifa army, and it's like 8 journalists and 5 protesters, and one of them is in a chicken suit. So, Brianna, war-ravaged Portland, more like craft beer ravaged Portland, more like vegan ravaged Portland, more like, I don't know, pleasant weather ravaged Portland.
Yeah,
this is the way. Yes.
Yeah, I love this energy because it's just, it takes peaceful protesting to the next level, I think, because again, we talked earlier about the mockery. It makes them mad when we mock them. And it's in direct conflict with what we're hearing them say. And it's like, yo, it's 2025. We have the internet. We have all of these videos of what's actually happening in Portland. So it's just like calling out the absurdity and the fact that like it is absurd and it's a great way to protest. And I'm like, yeah, if it's cold enough next weekend, let's go wear our unicorn onesies for the big protest. Like, because like, who's going to be able to say with a straight face, these violent protesters, these violent unicorns and frogs, how dare they? They are just horrible and violent. I think it's great. It's the one bright spot in this whole hellscape that we're in right now is watching Portland right now. And I think that everyone should take that cue from Portland and do the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lisa. So let me ask. Could the Germans in the 1930s have averted fascism if giant inflatable frog costumes had been a thing back then?
Maybe. But I think it goes back to the point that was made earlier about that they're not very good. They're not very good at this, right? They're not very good at this, and that is something that gives me a little bit of hope. They're not very good at this.
They don't read
Rena, well,
history.
your thoughts on Portland? Yeah.
Sorry.
ahead.
I was just getting ready to say part of the reason is they don't know history.
Yeah.
Like they just know in broad strokes, right? They just know the main story. They don't know any of the details because knowledge is bad, right? They don't know any of the backstories or any of the warnings or anything.
Yeah, no, they really
It's
they only know that might
discouraged,
makes
like,
right, and you need some
Yeah.
preparation. Also, it turns out, yeah.
or how any of those people were defeated.
Yeah.
Like, and you're just rushing into the defeated part, which is fine. We're happy about that. We want that.
I feel like they
so,
don't understand America as
like,
well.
No,
like their own
absolutely
country.
not.
They're like,
Absolutely
oh,
not.
Germany did this, but we're not Germany now, much less in the 1940s. It was a different
Yeah.
world. And there's
Yeah.
different expressions every time of this kind of authoritarian phenomenon.
Mhm.
And you can't just transplant tactics from before to now.
No,
Like,
absolutely not.
if they had done killed all the members of their opposition party now, it would have a completely different effect than it did for Hitler in Germany at that time. They're a country that just came off war. Everybody's a war veteran. They lost the war. There's widespread devastation. People are starving because there's no food. It's a very different environment than the US, where for 100 years almost now, it's been total peace and prosperity for not every person in the country, but for the country at large. And just a lot of comfort. A lot of very privileged people are leading this.
Yeah.
A lot of the foot soldiers are also privileged children who have never faced any adversity. This isn't Chechnya, where people have been fighting in real wars for 50 years, and now these are the veterans that you've got. These are just people who like the idea of what we're doing, but not the reality. Like, even his supporters, they like the idea. It looks cool and feels cool to think of all the illegals, the evil people being rounded up and thrown in a jail. But the reality comes, and it sucks. It's not fun. It's
because
not
they
what
didn't
thought it was.
think about the unintended consequences.
Well, even
right?
the intended consequences are not what they imagine the consequences to be. In their fantasy, it's just all untethered and they can all just have fun feelings and excited feelings. But the reality is that things get damaged, things get more expensive. Your relationships with people are destroyed. Your neighbors, your neighboring country stop dealing with you. Like, there's just a bunch of problems and everything sucks for a long time is the experience of this in reality for most people. And I think it's so fitting that this is how fascism came to power here, in that it's like a movie. The people who implement it think it's a movie. The followers think it's a movie. And then the movie is not like a movie in real life. And so it just becomes, his support collapses because it just wasn't as fun as all of the people who've never done anything like this, who have no experience with authoritarianism, thought it was.
The visuals are stunning, but you could plot holes you could drive a truck through.
I
want to move from war-ravaged Portland to an actual war-ravaged place over in Gaza, where after a intensive week of diplomacy, a U.S. brokered ceasefire was approved by the Israeli government, and it does appear to be bringing a temporary halt to the 2-year-long war on Gaza. The agreement includes a phased release of hostages and Palestinian prisoners, a partial withdrawal of Israeli troops from Gaza, and a ramp-up of humanitarian aid. U.S. and other international leaders have been active in the region to support the plan's implementation. So, Israel approved the first phase of this peace deal late last week, which immediately brought the ceasefire into effect. This stage involves Hamas releasing the remaining hostages taken during the October 7th, 2023 attack in exchange for nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners and detainees held by Israel. This is supposed to begin tomorrow, and the hostage releases are supposed to take place over like a 72-hour period. Some family members have expressed relief. Others have voiced frustration over the terms, which include the release of prisoners convicted of violent crimes. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu thanked current U.S. President Donald Trump for his role in brokering the deal. With this ceasefire, preparations are underway to immediately increase the flow of humanitarian aid into Gaza. An Israeli defense body confirmed that aid would ramp up to around 600 trucks per day, including food, fuel, and medicine. As Israeli troops are beginning to withdraw from certain areas, tens of thousands of Palestinians are beginning to return to where their homes used to be in northern Gaza, many of them finding widespread destruction. For our part, the United States is sending up to 200 troops to establish a coordination center in Israel, working with forces from Egypt, Qatar, Turkey, and the UAE to monitor the ceasefire. The European Union has also released a statement welcoming the agreement and supporting a lasting peace. Brianna, I mean, listen, all else aside, this is a positive development, yes?
It seems that way. If it continues and actually rolls out the way it's supposed to, it will be a positive thing, I think. I don't know. I hold my breath these days because I'm just like, all right, when's the other shoe going to drop? But I mean, this seems positive.
We talked about folks, I mentioned earlier, Mike Braun and, arguing in bad faith and just kind of the Republican MO in general of, being a bad faith actor. You've got to wonder if Bibi Netanyahu is just engaging in the same. Karen, I mean, do you trust Benjamin Netanyahu to be a party to a lasting peace in the Middle East?
I don't know about the whole Middle East, but it's more like I understand like that he's doing a genocide against the Gazans and that we need to stop that. But I have very little understanding of the rest of the dynamics of this situation, I feel like, because I don't really understand when he decides to ramp up pressure on them versus agreeing to the ceasefire now. I have no idea what motivated this. I don't know if internally Netanyahu was facing pressure. I remember hearing some talk about how some of the reservists were refusing to go when he was ordering them. So I'm not sure if this was the U.S. brokered a peace deal between Hamas and Netanyahu, or if this was Netanyahu at home is losing political control and people were pressuring him to bring those hostages back, which is how he was holding on to his position. He was saying, you need me to help be tough on Hamas to bring the hostages back. You can't kick me out. I need to bring the hostages back. And I think that he was using that to stay in power. And I suspect that he was running into the end of his rope with that people were like, you need to bring the hostages back or there's going to be consequences politically for you here. So I almost wonder if a ceasefire wasn't brokered as much as Netanyahu was like, oh shit, people are really seriously saying, I want my family member back, so you better bring him back or there's going to be problems. And then he was like, oh, there's now we reached a deal with Hamas and now we can get the hostages back. Because to me, it just didn't seem like there was any reason for him to suddenly do it. Like people have been trying to broker the ceasefire for like how many years now? 1 million. So why now suddenly is he like, yes, let's do it, when he could have done this at any time? Which suggests to me that there was some other pressure on him to do this because they were basically had total control of the place. A lot of the other countries had made tentative steps towards saying no to him, but for the most part, his position was pretty solid on the international front. The U.S. was still completely behind him and doing whatever he said. So I don't know if it wasn't that. I have no idea what motivated him to change his mind. So I don't know whether this can last. I don't know what the dynamics are, but I suspect it's something like that.
I just hope that the killing stops over there.
That's how I am too. It's like I don't know enough about the rest of it to speak intelligently, but I just want people to kind of stop killing each other and deal with it some other way, which maybe is naive, but that's what I want.
I have to sort of not breeze through, but maybe speed up the pace at which we tackle these next two, just so we get plenty of time to talk about our one big thing today. A quick trio from Latin America stories. We're going to party like it's 1820 and the Monroe Doctrine is in full effect. So on the Friday, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth announced the establishment of a new counter-narcotics joint task force to operate in the Caribbean. This is intended to crush drug cartels under the direction of President Trump. The announcement comes amid heightened tension with Venezuela. And by heightened tension, I mean it is completely one-sided. We're, putting troops in the area and drone bombing their civilians. The U.S. has accused the Venezuelans of carrying out illegal incursions and military provocation. The military has conducted strikes, like I said, against vessels in the Caribbean that were allegedly transporting drugs, but were more likely transporting fish. In Venezuela-related stories, the opposition leader there, Maria Corina Machado, was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize on Friday. She ran as opposition candidate against President Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela's 2024 election and was recognized for her efforts to promote democracy. Machado dedicated the award to the suffering people of Venezuela and, in a weird twist, also dedicated it to President Trump for his decisive support. This decision was met with criticism from the White House because Trump himself wanted the Nobel Prize. I guess he'll have to settle for the shout out. Finally, in a story we briefly touched on last week, the U.S. Treasury finalized a $20 billion financial support package for Argentina, a authoritarian light ally of the Trump administration, led by President Javier Milei. This bailout includes a currency swap with Argentina's central bank and the direct purchase of Argentine pesos. This has been criticized for potentially benefiting U.S. investors with ties to the Trump administration and for being politically motivated. The timing of the bailout has also been questioned because, we're keeping the Argentinian government afloat while ours is shut down. Lisa, anything stand out from the Latin American grab bag right there?
I think you said a lot of it. I mean, the fact that we're giving $20 billion to Argentina when our own government is shut down is, crazy. And then let's be honest, we're murdering people in Venezuela. I mean, that is what we are doing. And there's talk about possibly even, I'm hearing speculation about a war with Venezuela. That's crazy. And then maybe it all goes back to what we were talked about at the very beginning. Epstein. Is it another distraction from Epstein? I don't know. But it is is concerning what we're doing in Venezuela. Yeah. And then of course Trump losing the Nobel Prize while he's starting a war inside his own country, and him being upset about that is just
so sad. You gotta really feel for the guy. He really coveted that Nobel,
I thought that the Norwegian committee was a little bit nervous about having to make an announcement that he wasn't going to get it is even more outrageous and ridiculous at the same time.
Karina, anything stand out there to you?
I have a rather unusual affinity for Latin American history, so maybe let's not go down that rabbit hole with me. But I agree with Lisa that we have got to stop murdering Venezuelan fishermen. Why the UN is not speaking up about that, I guess just because they're used to kowtowing to us and they need to stop that. The one thing that is really terrible for the United States, but really, really good for the rest of the world is all of this nonsense that's happening to us right now is the rest of the world is realizing that they don't need us as much as they thought they did. And that is really bad for us, but it's good for the rest of the world.
Yeah,
They
our
are
pro-democracy and rule
Yeah.
of law brand has really taken
Yeah.
it over the last 10
Yeah.
years, hasn't it?
And we are literally going to be generations rebuilding the soft power and the allies, the relationships that we have had with our allies after this is over, because so much damage has been done. I
Yes.
don't think anybody can truly describe what I have no words.
Damaging
But
our constitutional order. Yeah. Damaging
yeah,
our reputation abroad, and also damaging our economy.
Yeah.
In our last U.S. story this week, I did want to point out a couple things in this regard. So once again, tariffs on again, off again, on again, off again. On Thursday, China announced new restrictions on the export of rare earth minerals and related technologies. The next day, President Trump responded by threatening to impose an additional 100% tariff on all imports from China effective November 1st. This would be in addition to existing tariffs, escalating the trade tensions to a level not seen since, April. Yeah, real long time ago. The markets reacted with a significant plunge on Friday, the Nasdaq suffering its largest drop since April, and bond yields falling sharply as investors sought safer assets. Concerns mounted that the renewed trade war could trigger a stagflationary recession. Just today, China's Commerce Ministry stated it was not afraid of a tariff war, but preferred negotiation. The ministry also justified its export controls as a defensive response to U.S. actions. All of this is going on, again, meanwhile, while the government is shut down. So that has economic consequences of its own. The Office of Management and Budget under Project 2025 architect Russell Vogt, aka Rasputin, began laying off federal workers, citing the ongoing shutdown. Mass firings of over 4,000 employees were announced, with more expected. Economists are warning that as the shutdown continues, economic activity will continue to slow, with some estimating a 15 basis point reduction in GDP for each week it lasts. For the U.S. economy, the combined effect of the renewed trade war and the government shutdown are creating this potential perfect storm of negative factors, with heightened recession risks on top of, if we bring this thing full circle and talk about the data centers and stuff that we were talking about at the beginning of the show, so much of our economy, I think I've seen like a third of the market capitalization in the stock market. It's all built on top of an AI bubble, which could burst at any time and send the economy into a death spiral. So, Brianna, how does that make you feel?
It makes me upset for sure. I feel like, again, more just bullshit about distracting from things that people actually care about. And this trade war honestly has felt to me more like a wealth grab than an actual trade war. It feels like they are purposefully trying to tank the economy so that they can buy up a bunch of stocks very inexpensively. And then when the economy rebounds, like it inevitably will, they will stand to make billions. So that is my view on this, and it's so extremely frustrating because the people who are going to suffer from this are everyday Americans, and that's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
Karen, boom and bust, right? It is the nature of capitalism. Man, we should do something to smooth out those rough edges, eh?
Yeah, for sure. But the first time he did this back in whatever month it was, March, April, I had the same kind of view as Brianna. because a lot of people were saying that it was part of Project's 2025 plan to crash the economy and buy up everything and then be all powerful. But like everything else in that wish list that they published, it's not as straightforward as that, is it? Because if your wealth is based on the value of the thing that you're destroying, it might create some problems for you later when you try to buy things back. That's not to say it'll be impossible that some people might profit, but I don't think it's a foregone conclusion or something that you should bank on happening if you're one of these billionaire people. It's true that a few people made money during the Great Depression, but a few is like 3. And I don't think the 3 people knew beforehand that they would be the ones to benefit. It was very chaotic. There were a lot of unforeseen effects of playing these kinds of games. And it was overwhelmingly not a good thing for even the wealthiest people for something like this to happen. So it's like I was saying earlier about the fantasy of doing things and living in fantasy land versus reality where it sucks when you do bad things. Like, it seems to be very difficult for them to grasp that the things that they want to do are considered bad for a reason. It's not just because I said so from your mom. There's a reason that people don't want you to do that. It's because it sucks and it makes everything suck, including stuff for you, which I know a lot of them can't imagine because they're high on their own supply of privilege or money or group chats or AI that they've been talking to. That's just a text predictor reinforcing their beliefs. But what they want to happen, even if it is the plan, does not necessarily mean that it would be good for them. It's like they can't imagine that it might go badly, what they're trying to. It's very full of just incompetence and stupidity. And then
and hubris.
Trump too is like, someone mentioned that it might be a distraction from Epstein, and it's probably that, but it's also the fact that Trump's grip on power is not as strong as it needs to be to do what he wants to do. So he tends to do things that the president already has the power to do, like special military operations of bombing Venezuelan boats. This is something he doesn't need Congress to approve. It's something he doesn't need anyone's permission to do. He, the president, can do it. Therefore, that's what he does. The tariffs for now have been granted to him the power to unilaterally just do tariffs whenever. Therefore, he does tariffs. So I think it's less that, not just that he wants to do a distraction, but it's more that he needs to do things in order to maintain his psychological stability, for one thing, but also to kind of give the impression of power. He has to continue taking actions. And the only actions that he can take unilaterally are these tariffs and special military operations. Therefore, he keeps doing those just because that's what's available for him to do. So I don't think it's a sustainable plan. It's not a plan at all. It's just him impulsively doing something to feel better and also to give the impression that he's powerful. I don't think that they'll last very long. Just like before, he was forced to stop because it was doing too much damage to people who are important allies of his. I think that's how it'll go this time too. The shutdown won't last long. I don't think the OMB, we're going to fire 4,000 people. They've announced it, but the last time they fired not even that many, just like a couple thousand, they had to immediately try and rehire them all back.
Oh shit, we actually need these people.
It had destroyed their capacity to carry out their other play. It's just very chaotic. It's very impulsive. It's very, let's just try this and see what happens. I don't know. I don't think we should be intimidating into relenting to their desires because of these things that they're doing, because they've already did them a few months ago and then had to go back because of the consequences. And I predict that that's the same thing that's going to happen this time.
Yeah.
So we're talking about, if this continues, like we may fall into a recession. As the way these government statistics work, they're always a little bit behind anyway. We've seen some downward revisions in jobs numbers and stuff these past few months. Lisa, I mean, we're already in a recession, aren't we?
Yeah,
I think we are. And we don't even know. They haven't released the September employment numbers yet. Right. And I think that's because they're probably not good.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know you're in a recession until after you've been in it. So why would we not be? And we've got tons of people we're laying off from the federal government. Who's going to invest in this country with the tariff situation? Who's going to hire?
Yeah.
talk to recent college graduates and see how much luck they are having finding a job. It's not a good market right now.
Yeah, not great out there, Bob.
Now I will say, up until Friday, the stock market didn't seem to know that. So, but if we're not in a recession, we're heading that way. I don't see how we're not heading that way.
Yeah, and Karina, just real quick before we have to move on, that can go either way, right? Like if the economy goes to shit, that's going to reflect poorly on the Trump administration, obviously, for their poor stewardship of the economy. But authoritarians do love a good crisis. It maybe a way for them to ramp up their misdeeds.
No.
No. Yeah, I'm again, there's just so much incompetence.
Yes.
Like, there are a few people who are intelligent, competent, good at their job, but there are just so many more people who aren't. It's overwhelming, any of the ones who actually know what they're doing. And the economy stuff, like, if the president had actually earned his degree instead of daddy buying it for him, maybe he would understand that the tariffs are bad. Maybe. I don't know.
It's a grab bag, this administration, of like some of the most unusual and ill-conceived policies of any administration over the last several hundred years. You got the Monroe Doctrine's strong Latin American policy stuff. You got the tariffs from McKinley. Just the guy just oozes Nixon. It is
truly some of the worst possible choices.
Yeah,
of all of the
examples
possible
we
choices.
had. Yeah. This is what we're drawing from. Gross. Worthy of mass protest, which is why I brought all of you together today. So, hey, this coming Saturday, no Kings 2, Electric Boogaloo, no thrones, no crowns, no kings. Now, we had one of these nationwide day of action, day of protest in June. This was right around the time of Trump's birthday / military parade, if I recall. Man. So now, again, I brought together a bunch of indivisible organizers precisely to talk about this thing, because each of you, had events at that time. So let's talk about how the first No Kings events went, and then we'll look at this upcoming weeks a little bit. And I am going to go backwards there and start with you, Karina. How was the first No Kings protest in Terre Haute? You guys had big turnout?
Yeah, we did. We had a really great turnout. It was the biggest one that we had so far. And it was also the most diverse one that we had in aspects of race, in aspects of age, in aspects of socioeconomic status, everything. It was so much more diverse than any of the other rallies that we've had. And so we were just really excited about that. We had probably at any given moment, we had at least 800 people. We think over the course of the whole day, we had probably about 1,000. And
nice.
for comparison, the city of Terre Haute is probably maybe about 50,000 now. It was about 60,000 before COVID.
Wow.
Oh my.
So and then the greater Terre Haute area is about maybe 90,000. So
yeah. How about up there in the Lafayette area, Lisa? I understand that the original No Kings protests in June were the largest single day mass protest action in American history. Is that correct?
They're saying is the June 14th No Kings was one of the largest single day protests in American history. There's been some talk, they're saying about 5 million people is one of the numbers that I've heard nationwide. In Lafayette, we had somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 people that came out, and we marched around the courthouse in downtown Lafayette. And then we came back over to the West Lafayette side and had a community fair where we had music and singing and speakers and food trucks at the Chapawingo Park. And we're going to pretty much do the same thing on this Saturday, except we're going to have the streets shut down in Lafayette, and we're going to have a band. So we're looking forward to even more people and even more fun this Saturday.
So now, Karen, Karina and Lisa are in, mid-sized cities, and they had a really good turnout. You're in Indianapolis. You guys had huge turnout.
We did.
Huge turnout on the 14th.
So all of the protests prior to No Kings in June, 5051 have been doing those before they imploded. So there was one like every 2 weeks or so. So there had been hands off. There was a Women's Day one. Those were kind of big. On average, there was about, for the smaller ones, there was like 1,500. For the hands off and the April or the Women's Day one, I think there were 3,000 or 4,000 at those. At No Kings, there were around 15,000. Pride was the same day. So the Pride Parade was also happening downtown. And No Kings picked up right after Pride, just like in Boston. So all the Pride people also came and swelled the ranks of No Kings. So we did like marching around the thing. There were speakers. There was like a couple of organizations in the front that were giving out information. With 5051, it was a more like loosey-goosey. So it was like whoever wanted to talk like the week before, they would just let everyone go out there and talk who wanted to speak. There was not as much organization in terms of like speakers or placement. So nobody could really hear the speakers. The marching around wasn't really led by anyone. It was kind of just whoever was there would just get a bullhorn and do it. So this time we're trying to do a little bit more organized, but we did get a lot of participation at the last one. It was by far the biggest one of all the protests that we had. I think it was like that across the whole country because that was right after he did the LA stuff. So it juiced the numbers a lot by that.
Brianna, were you able to make that one?
I was not. I was out of town, unfortunately.
Just like me this time. I'm so mad. I'm so mad. I won't.
But I will be there this weekend. So.
Tell me how it was.
Well, yeah. Let's
a No
talk
Kings
about this coming
protest
weekend
all
here.
over the country.
Yeah.
You being out of town is not an excuse. There's a No Kings protest, 2,500 all over the country.
Wherever you are, there will
I'm gonna be at Nashville. I'll probably stop by that one, but yeah. I'm so sad.
That's awesome. So, Karen, I want to stick with you now. You guys you're in Indianapolis. You're organizing this coming No Kings with Mad Voters and ACLU Indiana, and I want to say Concerned Clergy.
Concerned Clergy, Indivisible South Central Indiana is also helping to organize, and Women for Change as well, another Indiana state organization mostly focused on like gender issues, but we have like a bunch of co-chairs this time to help organize this, which we needed because it was a big lift this time because we've got an actual program. So we have like a program of 5 or 6 speakers. We also have musicians that are scheduled to go on. There's an activist fair portion. We hosted a similar event recently where we had a bunch of different organizations all come together at an event where people could come and find out about what was going on and join a volunteer, like get plugged in politically. And so we're doing that again at this one. So at the event, there's assigned spaces. We recruited people and they're coming in early to set up their tents and stuff. We got professional sound equipment. We got professional like recording, like cameras and stuff. We actually reached out to the media to actually have them come and had like a media liaison and all that. We have a band that's going to be leading the protest, the march around, and the march is scheduled at a certain time. So everybody could be there. Like when the most people are there is when we're going to do the march around. There's a lot of musicians that were participating in another recent event. They had a Night of the Blues Democrat fundraiser in Noblesville. So a bunch of those musicians are going to be just like in the crowd and they're going to help with keeping cadence for the march around. So we're trying to do like an actual event with a program this time and seeing how that goes because we are expecting a lot of people to come. And so we don't want it to be chaotic or disorganized. We have like professional security for this one. We had a lot of training for security people. So we're hoping that it's going to go smoothly this next time coming up here. So
it sounds like you guys are on top of it. Yeah. Lisa, do you guys have like an activist fair or places where like affiliated groups are going to be able to like maybe get folks who come to the protest and sort of involved, help them find their lane?
We'll have at least 10 groups, maybe more. We'll be tabling at the event where people can find out how they can get involved. We're also going to be recruiting people for the next event, because we think this is not going to be the last No Kings type event that we're going to have. So we're looking forward to this Saturday, and then we're looking forward to what comes after that.
Karina, when you guys are in the process of planning and organizing an event like this, do you know a week ahead what kind of turnout you're gonna get? Do you like know what to prepare for, or is it just a crapshoot going in?
No, we always for us specifically, this is how we do it. I don't know how anyone else does, but we always make a mobilize event, and that's like an online way that people can go and sign up that they're going to attend. And typically we get roughly about twice as many people as sign up on Mobilize. That's just kind of been our ballpark. And we've been doing events since the April 5th hands-off event was our very first one. And we had 400 people at that one. So that was really cool. We were like, this is our very first rally. We had 400 people. It was amazing.
That's really good. Yeah.
And then you said you wound up doubling that.
Right. We had about 800 or so at No Kings 1. But yeah, so we usually get typically about twice as many as signed up on Mobilize, sometimes more than that. And that gives us a vague sort of window of how many to expect. But it's just, like you said, it's just a guesstimate. And
are you seeing more interest in the lead up this time than you did in June?
Yeah, we're having a lot of people sign up. Yeah. And of course, we're still at this point, we're still a week out. So a lot of people really sign up pretty close to the event. Yeah. We usually have, especially the last few days, but certainly the last week. And we have people sign up like during the event, which is a little strange to me. Yeah. I don't know why, but we have people like going into Mobilize while the event's going on and saying, I'll be there. Okay, sure. But yeah, I think that's kind of funny. But it was a bigger deal during the summer because it was so hot. We were trying really hard to make sure that we had enough water for everyone. And not that we won't, continue to do that, but it was a really, really important thing to us in the summer. So yeah, we, especially with No Kings 1, we ran out of water pretty early on, and like, okay, somebody's gonna go get more water. So yeah, that's the big thing, is just not knowing how many people will be there.
Yeah, so it definitely, like, as y'all are describing these are, there's a lot of legwork that goes into these. These are very well organized, a lot of planning that goes into it. Karen's talking about you got blocking out your schedule. These people are going to speak here, this band's going to play here, that sort of thing. These are very well organized, contained. Probably got permits. The cops know you're going to be there, when you're going to be there, who's in charge, kind of have a point person to talk to. So when I go to protests like this, and I do, you've always got some people in the audience or in the crowd who are like, this is lovely, but are we actually going to prove our point? Are we actually going to move the needle? Are we going to, disrupt this system with a, well-contained, nicely behaved protest? Is it protest, or is it like a pep rally? So, I have my thoughts on this, but I want to hear. Obviously, you're all organizing these things. I imagine that means you think that they are effective. So, sell me peaceful protest. It, shouldn't need to be sold, but alas, here we are. Brianna, I haven't heard from you in a little bit.
Yeah, I think that peaceful protesting does do something, even if it is just bringing people together and bringing attention to the issue itself, because whether we like it or not, there are a lot of unengaged Hoosiers in general when it comes to politics. And I think that just protesting, especially in mass numbers, brings attention to what's going on. And it provides an opportunity for someone to go, hey, what's going on, that they cannot ignore. So I think that it's good for that, because at the end of the day, when we're looking at it, it's like, we were sharing articles about if 3.5% of the population participates, that it makes a difference. So especially in these large ones, I think it does matter. I think that when they get violent is when they are not as effective, which is why I appreciate what Portland does with their silliness, which, I mean, keep Portland weird, right? But I do see from the other side where people are saying, because, me and my husband like to get in political disagreements, and, from his perspective, he believes in doing more targeted things, boycotts, stuff like that, which I also think has its place. I think it's one tool in the toolbox. It's not the only thing that is going to move the needle forward. We have to do all of these things in tandem together in order to make any significant difference.
Mhm.
Karen, I see these bumper stickers on cars sometimes when I'm driving. It says, well-behaved women rarely make history.
Yeah.
If we are well-behaved, is the regime going to get the point?
I said earlier that the regime is very fantasy-based, and that Trump supporters were like that, where they imagine all this dramatic stuff happening and that it will make them cool and will work out just like that. They're not the only ones who are like that. I would argue that Americans at large are very fantasy-based, including some of us on the left who are like, oh, this doesn't count. It's just a parade and it's approved by the government, so it doesn't count because you're not fighting the power. And they have in their minds this image of fighting or confrontation or violence, that it's the real work and that's what's going to really happen. And those people, just like the people on the right who are like that, even the ones who possess guns and talk all this big game, don't understand the country at large and who kind of Americans are. We are not battle-hardened, violence adept people, okay? This isn't Chechnya in the 80s. We are not, that's not who we are. As much as cool as it looks on TV and the very immersive media environment that America has lived in for like the last 80 or 90 years, it's not who we are. People are not going to go and risk life and limb because that's what you want to do to feel better about resisting this whole thing. The way that this is going to happen is very boring. A lot of people are going to participate. They're going to vote in new people. They're going to do other nonviolent but somewhat disruptive actions. They're going to march in the streets. They're going to complain on Twitter. They're going to whine to their friends. They're going to get together for Wine Mom Night and talk about this. That's the stuff that is meaningful. This is the stuff that moves the needle. Most people are not politically plugged in. They don't want to be Che Guevara. They just want things to be better, to get better, to go well. We need the most amount of people involved in this for it to work. You need to bring in as many people as possible. And events like this are the best way to bring new people in. Are they the only thing we're going to do? No. Just like Brianna said, some things are going to be more disruptive. They're going to be more impromptu. They're going to be more confrontational. I don't think violence is a good way to go just because of what it allows the administration to do if there is a lot of violence. And it's not even that they would be wrong necessarily to do that. And you don't want to introduce that kind of ambiguity into whether or not the administration should be doing something. Everything they do needs to be the wrong thing and needs to be resisted. And you don't want to introduce, oh, there was a big violent mob that killed a bunch of people, even if they were ICE agents. It just makes things worse. It degrades the quality of the population and of the political environment. And we want to keep it up here in the place where the only people doing wrong things are the agents of the state. You don't want to create a situation where their violence is justified in any way. Again, people have an idea in their minds that, and then we'll have a big revolutionary fight and then we'll be victorious. But that's not what's going to happen. What happens, a lot of people get hurt or killed. Elections are disrupted. Political processes grind to a halt or are altered in ways that are not necessarily advantageous. It's harder to get back to a place of democracy and a place of society that we want to be in, the more violent that this gets. You also want to leave room for escalation, right? So you don't want to start out with sit-ins and extremely disruptive actions, because if for some reason these aren't as effective the first time you do them, they leave you with no place to go other than violence. And you don't want to be there. We're not in that place yet. We're still in the place where things are mostly still working. There's some disruption. There's some authoritarian like lurches and things, but we're not in a place where democracy has collapsed and there's chaos and that we all have to fight for our lives against the invading army. We're not in that place. And I think it's ridiculous and also irresponsible for some people to pretend like that is where we are, or to speak as if it is where we are. I feel like it makes me think they don't understand the world and they don't understand how things are in situations where that has happened. It's very like naive American when people talk like that, as if this is Venezuela or this is, Cuba during various authoritarian overthrows, or, this is Papa Doc in Haiti. And I also feel the same way about the comparisons to Hitler. I don't think they're warranted. This is not Germany in the 40s. This is not Adolf Hitler leading them. The people working for him are not the SS. He wants us to think of them that way. They want us to think of this inevitable force that's coming. And once it starts, you can't stop it because it only goes in one direction and it's going to destroy everything. So if you don't do a bunch of violence, there's no point in doing anything. I think that rhetoric serves their aims. And so it really bothers me when people say stuff like that. This is not that. We're not in that position. We need to behave in the position that we're in. We need to do the things that are advantageous to where we want to be and that are actionable by the people that we are, and not a fantasy version that you read about or saw on television. So I react pretty strongly to that kind of stuff because it's bad. It degrades everything. And it makes us less effective. It actually disrupts the resistance to do that kind of thing. This is a peaceful march on the 18th. Yes. Let's be clear. We do not want any violence at all. It serves nothing. So, yes.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Let me frame it this way, because I'm not calling for political violence. Just in case there is anyone making that mistake. That is not what I'm calling for. But there is a lot of steps between well-behaved and peaceful and political violence. There are varying degrees of disruption. Maybe it's we're marching in the streets without a permit. I mean, that's not political violence. Although, again, the administration might say it is, right, Lisa?
Well, they just called. Did you hear what they said on Friday? That we were a violent terrorist organization. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And I don't even think we should.
Called us pro-Hamas.
This is a joyful way for Americans to have their voices heard, and for us to get together in community. And there are this is one tool we have in the toolbox, and this is how you bring people in. And I don't even want to participate in any more discussion about violence in this, because this is not what this is at all.
Yeah.
And even talking about it is bad, I think. No, we're not doing that.
As far as the more like just disruptive but non-violent stuff, though, I think that should be in response to things, because it either has to be like a spontaneous response or you somehow have to plan it in advance. And if you plan it in advance, then that is kind of like having a permit. Like maybe they didn't give you a permit, but like if you're just walking down the street altogether without a permit, like I think you have to consider what happened and then how you want to respond to that thing. So you should do whatever is most advantageous in any given like situation. So like sometimes like we're going to do stuff like this where it's very planned in advance. It's designed to bring people in to find out about what's going on in their area. That's the purpose of this event largely, and to show, hey, we're not cool with this in a very general way. But then there's stuff like there was a bunch of people who in Los Angeles, when the National Guard was there, they were told that they couldn't be in this certain area and they weren't allowed to be there. So a bunch of girls in like Mexican traditional dance all went out there and were all dancing in the area that they were told not to be in. And nothing happened. And it was disruptive and it was confrontational, but it fit the situation that it was in. And so I think that those disruptive actions can kind of go one or two ways. Like it can be very effective if it matches if it's a response to something that occurred. So it's like if they wanted you to do X and you did Y, or they said you're not allowed to do X and then you still did it. But sometimes the disruptive ones, if they're not done at the right time or they're not done in response to something, their potential is kind of deflated and it just becomes kind of something silly that some people did. So like the frogs in response to ICE being there is very effective and very disruptive. But if the ICE was not there and it's just a bunch of frogs going down the street or like blocking traffic, does it still have the same effect? You know, I say that it's because like it sounds lame or whatever, but like it really the meaning of these events, they are like publicity stunts in a way,
right?
These kind of disruptive actions. And any kind of publicity stunt, you have to consider how it's going to be received. So you don't want to just do stuff because it's disruptive and that protest should be disruptive. So let's just do something disruptive because it doesn't necessarily communicate the message that you want to send. And this is like a media messaging type of action that you would be taking. So like a bunch of frogs dancing in front of ICE in the street where they've been told not to stand is very effective. It's funny. There's pictures of it. ICE looks stupid. They look weak. The people they're fighting are wearing inflatable frogs. It's all a lot of fun. And it communicates, hey, ICE is lying. The administration is ridiculous. They're wrong about this in a very like kind of concrete and direct memeable way. But how would that have been received if, 500 frogs had blocked an intersection and ICE hadn't been there? They hadn't been dispatched to Portland. It was just, I don't know, in Puyallup, Washington or something. Then it's much less effective. There's people who are just mad at the traffic being blocked. There's other people who see it and they're like, what are these frogs? I don't understand what they're in response to or what's going on. The media probably doesn't carry it the same way, where it's just like, these frogs are here and they say that they're protesting Trump. And it's just not like, it's not effective. So I think effectiveness in terms of disruptive actions is going to be key. Because you want to do something disruptive that's going to tell a story that you want out there, that's going to connect everything together in a way that's advantageous to you and not just silly or stupid or, like, oh, look at these leftists. They're so dumb. They're always doing ridiculous stuff that doesn't matter. So you've got to consider that stuff when deciding what actions you want to take.
Yeah. It has to be really strategic.
Yes, that's the word.
Very strategic. Yeah.
Let me. Who dropped the link about the 3.5% rule in the in our show notes? Was that you, Brianna?
No, I just read it.
Oh, I didn't adjust the notes at all. So
okay, well, so, I mean, this is. I guess I'll bring it up because this is something that one of my favorite organizers in Indiana, Michelle Higgs, candidate for State House 60 down here, who I adore. This is something she brings up a lot. And it's this 3.5% protest rule. And so it's a number frequently cited in left-wing circles. I'm reading from The Guardian here. It serves as a rallying cry for people who oppose Trump. If 3.5% of a population protests against a regime, it will fail. This is sort of a meme that has taken off after a Pod Save America episode in June, referencing, I mean, they didn't come up with it, but this is goes back to an article written by political scientists Erica Chenoweth and Maria Stefan, They created a database of civil resistance campaigns from over 100 years, going back to 1900 all the way through 2006, analyzing whether nonviolent or violent movements were more likely to succeed and whether there was a tipping point in terms of size. And what they described, this is Chenoweth, a Harvard professor, they determined that, they were skeptical of non-violent resistance, but the results showed non-violent campaigns were, in fact, often much larger and were twice as likely to succeed than violent movements. They were more representative of the population, and they found active and sustained participation by only 3.5% of a population meant a movement would succeed with very few exceptions. So, this article seems to suggest that, peaceful protest is, in fact, the way to go. It has to be bringing in more people, and if you reach that tipping point where enough of the population becomes involved, then the regime will fall. And would you say that all of you generally ascribe to this 3.5% rule?
I did. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
I didn't say anyone's name, so I was like, I'll go.
Did you say my name? I'm so sorry.
Oh no, I said Karina. I'm sorry.
Karina.
Oh, did you? I'm sorry, I didn't hear. I actually really love their work, and I love the backstory because Erica Chenoweth didn't believe in that at all when she first heard Maria talk. So she basically came up to Maria afterwards and was like, "You're full of it." And Maria's like, "Let's do some research together and prove it." And so that's how that all came about. But anyway, I think there are a few caveats because none of the groups that they looked at were anything like the United States. So
yeah,
we're in uncharted territory here. So we have to keep that in mind. But also, like we've talked about several times, this regime is really, really bad at being bad, right? So we have that in our favor, right? Maybe they'll topple a little easier. So maybe it doesn't have to be quite 3.5%. But they are talking about sustained protests. So we're not talking about a couple hours on a Saturday. We're
Right.
talking about people out there for weeks at a time, possibly months at a time, maybe even a year or 2 years. And
Look
like
at,
Karen was saying
France a couple years
earlier,
ago. Yeah.
yeah, like Karen was saying earlier, in the United States, we are not used to discomfort. Like, we're just not accustomed to that. We're not used to sitting in discomfort and putting ourselves out, right? And making ourselves uncomfortable on purpose. So we're having to deal with that now and deliberately putting ourselves in uncomfortable situations and stepping outside our comfort zones and doing a lot of things. Like for me, I am an introvert. I want all of this to be over so I can go back to being a hermit. I'm peopling way more than I want to be. And getting up in front of 800 people, holy cow, I never thought I would do that. I have to get up there and pretend like I'm speaking to one person in the crowd because I can talk one-on-one to people, but oh gosh, 800 people. No. But yeah, so we have to keep those things in mind, that it is talking about sustained protest, and it's talking about, much smaller countries than the United States and not spread out like we are. So it's such a different situation in the US than anything that's ever come before.
Yeah.
But also we have this in addition to the American myth that's in our head, we also, for some reason, still have this collective idea of who we are as Americans. And even though we've become really, really divided, we've still managed to hang on to some aspects of that. And so we still have, with part of that American myth, we still have this idea of freedom. We still have this idea of we want to be welcoming. We want to be the city on the hill, all of those things that we have in our head as the example to the rest of the world, right? And not everybody has that, but overall, as a country, this is what we want to be in our heads, right? So I think if we can tap into enough of that, then we can have that really big tent and pull those people in who were just drawn into Trumpism kind of peripherally. Those people are the persuadables. Those people are the people that we can draw in. And not the hardcore MAGA, those people that are way, way down the rabbit hole, but those people that were just kind of drawn in relatively recently. The youngins that wanted to fix the economy, the people in the what do they call it, the brosphere or whatever. All of those, the relatively recent Trump converts, I think those are the most persuadable people that we can draw into our big tent and will be on board with rebuilding. And we can never go back to the country that we had before. First of all, we don't want to, because we know it was so unbelievably broken. It wasn't working for
you don't get here if it was going great.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, that's why we're here, because it wasn't working. So we need to build something ever so much better than what we had. So we have this fantastic opportunity. And realistically, I know I'm not going to see the final product in my lifetime. It's so much work, but I know that I can help build the foundation. And that is such a fantastic thing. And so I am ready to build this big tent and bring everybody in that we can, and look forward to see what do we want our country to look like going forward. Right? Because this ain't it.
Yeah.
This ain't it.
You said you said a really important word in there. And I sort of been focused on. You said uncomfortable. And Americans are not used to being uncomfortable. Right. Although in a way we are. I mean, like we don't have things that other countries take for granted, like universal health care or, like a functioning social safety net. So, as those things fray even further, we are becoming more uncomfortable. But I think this thing doesn't really change until we make the exceptionally comfortable uncomfortable. And that's why I think in the end, we're talking about peaceful protests like this, amazing. I encourage them. We should be doing this all the time. And having things like the auxiliary events and the drives and helping people find their lane, because that builds the movement, that increases solidarity. So when we need to band together and put economic pressure on the elites, then there are more of us to do so. And I think economic pressure in the end is inevitably how we get out of this thing. I don't know, Lisa, am I on the wrong path?
No, I think that's between the upcoming recession that I think is going to happen. Boycotts. We saw the boycott of Disney work pretty well when they tried to. The boycotts of Target that's going on. I see that. I see more of that kind of work in the future. Excellent. And America likes their money. So.
Well, yeah, that is really kind of the extent to to which we are fully captured by capitalism really does make us different than some of these other countries we're talking about.
Yeah.
So listen, hey, we're just about here at the end, and I wanted to, number one, thank you all for being here with me today. I've really appreciated your contributions to this conversation, and I deeply thank you for the organizing work you are doing in your communities. And with that said, I want to give people in those communities an opportunity to find you. So, Karen, where can the good folks find out more about you and more about Indivisible of Central Indiana? And about your event next Saturday.
Okay, so the event next Saturday, we're actually hoping to put up a billboard as well on Fall Creek Road. So hopefully you'll get to see it there. But it is next Saturday down at the State House. That is October 18th. And then it will be from 11 a.m. about to 2 p.m. The speakers will be on from around 12 to 2. The march will be in the afternoon, like right after the 2 p.m. From 11 to 12, there'll be a lot of time for anybody who visits to go and visit some of the tents of the organizations that are going to be involved. So we have, gender justice organizations, racial justice, prison rights. We've got a couple of indivisible groups. We've got the ACLU. Some party politics groups are also going to be there, as well as some actual candidates that will be visiting the event as well. They'll be like walking around. I think there's only one person who's a candidate actually speaking, but they'll be there actually visiting. So it's a great time to come and interact with local politicians and to interact with the political process locally. A lot of times this is underestimated. There's a lot of focus on national stuff, but all politics is local, as they say. So it's really a great opportunity for people to get involved at that level to actually affect change here around them where they can still do it. And then we have a website. They just changed the website name and I'm trying to find it.
I'll tell you what, I'll let you find that while Karina tells us where the people can find out more about the event going on in Terre Haute next week and or more about Indivisible of Greater Wabash Valley there.
Yeah. Indivisible Wabash Valley will be at the courthouse, which is usually where we have our big rallies. We will be there from noon to 2. During the hottest part of the summer, we were having them a little earlier in the day, but we're moving them back to noon for the school year. And we will have some live music as well. We've got some really great speakers coming in. We'll have people there to register people for voting. Couple of different orgs will be participating with us. We're going to have a great time. And if you want to find us online, we have, we're just about everywhere except Twitter. We don't do Twitter. We have Indivisible Wabash Valley is all spelled out.org. And we're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of the things. So
get on Twitter anyway, just to lock down your brand and make sure somebody doesn't pose as you.
We do have a Twitter, we just don't use it. Yeah. No. Everybody was like, does anybody want to do the Twitter? And we're like, no. Yeah.
No, it's horrible.
No,
there's no point. It's all
nobody
just
wants to be there.
So.
That's
just grab the handle so no one else is using it.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Lisa,
it is going to be
folks in the greater Lafayette area. Oh, sorry, Karen.
I got the website. Sorry. It's indivisiblecentralindiana.org. That's the website.
Thank you.
We're also on Twitter and Facebook and Blue Sky. I think we're on Instagram, Facebook, and Blue Sky. I don't think we're on Twitter, but please don't go there and post as us, but we don't post on there. We're everywhere else though. So.
Yeah, we're Blue Sky too.
Scheming. No. Lisa, how about folks in the Lafayette area? Where can they find you and how can they get involved?
So to find Greater Lafayette Indivisible, you can go on Facebook, you can go on Blue Sky, and you can go on Instagram, just Lafayette Indivisible. And then we also have a website, LafayetteIndivisible.com. We are always on Mobilize, all our events you can find, in addition to being on Facebook, we use Mobilize quite a bit. We are on the No Kings map, so you can find us on the No Kings map and find our event going on. It's at 2:00 at the Marjoram Fountain in Tapawingo Park. We're going to start there, go across the river, take a walk, and then head back to Tapawingo Park for the bands and the organizations and the food trucks. So
fantastic.
hope
and
everyone comes
finally,
out.
Brianna, you are going to be in Indianapolis for that event. Is that correct?
Yeah, I plan to be at the Indianapolis No Kings Day, and I do plan on streaming it probably to TikTok unless I finally bite the bullet and get StreamYard or whatever in multiple platforms. So, but look for that. I'm the Recovered Republican on most social medias. I'm on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok mainly. I also just recently started a Substack, still figuring that out though. But yes, I do plan to be there next weekend and stream the event.
Fantastic. Well, we're looking forward to that. I will see you on your live stream on Thursday night. So look for us there. Again, in the meantime, thank you all for joining me here today. I appreciate each and every one of you. In the meantime, until next week, I'm signing off. This has been Who's Left This Week. I'm Scott Aaron Rogers. Love each other, Indiana.
Thank you. Bye.